Welcome to Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I'm a board-certified music therapist, author, and expert on how to use music to relieve stress fast. This podcast is sponsored by McConnell Music Therapy Services, Inc., where they believe in the power of music to transform people and communities. Based in Northern California, their board-certified music therapists support people of all ages and abilities within hospitals, schools, corporations, and communities using music experience to connect, express, and de-stress. Visit them at mcconnellmts.com or their Facebook page, McConnell Music Therapy. This episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold is also sponsored by Dr. Nisi, trainer and certifier of master and executive coaches, because she believes every person, every relationship, every business, and your finances should be extraordinary. Find out more about Dr. Nisi Moore and the Life Coaching Institute at www.drnisi.com. That's DRNEECIE.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's so great to be with you, and I'm so glad you're here. I am so excited to bring you today's interview. I'm not going to lie. When I booked Dave Asprey for my Stress Elimination Summit Recovery Edition, I'm glad it was over email, because when I got the confirmation that he'd agreed, I might have squealed out loud. I'm a big fan of his work and have been at several events with him, and we even appear one after another in a documentary, but we never actually met. So it was great. I mean, it was just a great honor and joy to finally interview him myself. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation between the father of biohacking and one of his students, and I'll see you on the other side. Dave Asprey is the founder and chairman of Bulletproof 360, a high-performance coffee and food company, and creator of the widely popular Bulletproof coffee. He is a 3-time New York Times bestselling author, host of the Webby Award-winning podcast Bulletproof Radio, and has been featured on The Today Show, Fox News, Nightline, CNN, and dozens more. Over the last 2 decades, Dave, the father of biohacking, has worked with world-renowned doctors, researchers, scientists, and global mavericks to uncover the latest, most innovative methods, techniques, and products for enhancing mental and physical performance. One of the most potent tools in his biohacking toolkit, and a core tenet of the Bulletproof lifestyle, is fasting. In his new book, Fast This Way: Burn Fat, Heal Inflammation, and Eat Like the High-Performing Human You Were Meant to Be, Dave asks readers to throw out the rules they think they know about fasting and shows us how to easily do it without facing down cravings, and how we can radically reframe our relationship with food to seriously upgrade our health simply by conquering our fear of going without. Dave, welcome to the Stress Elimination Summit, brother. It's great to have you.
Tim, I'm happy to be here. And talking about stress is one of my favorite things to do, and eliminating it, I guess.
Right on. So before we start, the crowd wants to know, what was your first concert?
John Cougar Mellencamp.
Oh!
I think I was maybe 10.
That's really funny, because I have a story about my first concert that I know I went to, which was U2. But I think I saw John Cougar Mellencamp at the fair. Like, I was at the fair and he was playing and we stopped and watched a song. And so yeah. I have this, like, does that count? I'm not sure.
Yeah, this was at a fair where I saw him, actually.
So. Oh, how funny. I guess that was his thing.
I mean, this was a long time ago. I guess fairs were a thing back 30-something years ago.
So when I got the kind of like the intro to your new book, I was reminded of some things I had heard before about intermittent fasting, but then immediately I got this immediate sense of empowerment around intermittent fasting. And so I think I got the notes from your assistant in like November, and I started right away. And I got to tell you, like, it broke my psychological dependency on food.
There you go.
I used to have a story that I was hypoglycemic and it triggered migraines because senior year of high school, we had a super late lunch and I'd always get headaches around lunchtime. So the doctor and the nurse theorized that I was hypoglycemic. So I'm 48, since I was 17, I've had this story. I have to eat every 2 hours or else I'm going to get a migraine. And
Talk about a stressor.
Right? I've lived inside of this little box around food. Food has been like my master as fuel for avoiding migraines my entire life until November. So
congratulations.
Thanks, man. So I just wanted to say right out of the gate,
wow.
like, I hadn't even read it yet, but like it's you broke that connection. So that was something I wanted to kind of dig in because food is so physical and emotional for people. And they have so many stories about it. And then they have so many stories about fasting. Like that doesn't sound like any fun. Kind of help empower people like why this is such an important thing to really take a good look at.
I had 2 stories about food playing for me. I used to weigh 300 pounds and I'm about 200 pounds now. Oh yeah, whoa. I was obese. And they told all of us, if you don't eat 6 times a day, your body will go into starvation mode. Newsflash, starvation equals death. That's not good. That's what your body hears. And then you'll get even fatter. So I'm like, I have to eat all the time. And I also knew that if I didn't eat all the time, I would get hypoglycemic. And then I'd act like a jerk. So I'm afraid of acting like a jerk and I'm afraid of getting even fatter because I already have a size 46-inch waist. I don't really want to go up any more than that, right? So fear is interesting. And when you read Fast This Way, it's not just a fasting book. In fact, a fasting book is really easy to write. Don't eat for a while, step 1. Step 2, it's good for you. Here's a bunch of studies. Okay, the science is there, and we're always learning more about the nuances, and I cover some of those. But the reality of fasting is that the reason people don't think about it is they think it'll take more willpower, more energy, and increase stress. But imagine if you went to the bank and you walk in the door and they're like, hey, here's some cash. And you're like, I didn't actually want it. Oh, no, this is just cash I'm giving you. You don't have to do anything for it. Like, oh, that's cool. And you'll get interest on that cash later this morning. And then a couple of years from now, we'll pay you a much bigger amount. And you're like, but I didn't have to make a deposit first? Like, no. And that's why I wrote a book about fasting, because when you learn how to do it right, and there's a few little hacks and tricks and things you need to know, but when you do it right, you spend less energy, less time, and less money on breakfast. So you got an immediate return. And then you have more energy and less stress and less thoughts about food that morning. And so you got more energy from less work. And then over time, oh yeah, you don't get diabetes and all of the things that come with it, like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, and cancer. So it's a win-win-win kind of a thing, but it sounds crappy. And I walk through the psychology and where it comes from, and it is where our stress comes from too. And for me to come to this conclusion, knowing I had those fears, I hired a shaman to drop me off in a cave for 4 days with no food and no people, because I also knew that I would eat if I was lonely, and I was kind of afraid of being alone at some subtle level. You know, a lot of people will get that. And so I said, I'll just face it all head on. And having worked now for more than 10 years, people have lost more than 1 million pounds on the Bulletproof diet. And I've been actively doing intermittent fasting for about 15 years and sharing it with clients and readers and listeners of Bulletproof Radio for that amount of time where I have really good data and you can see what works and what doesn't. So I wrote the book to help people understand why we do the things we do. And here's how stress works and how it works with food. Imagine that you're God for a minute and you want to make a new life, just a bacteria, like the simplest form of life. So it doesn't have complex brains to think about stuff. It has to just do a few simple things to make sure it stays around for billions of years. Now, the first thing you do is you'd say, make sure that it can run away from, kill, or hide from scary things. Okay? Because if a new life form gets eaten, it wasn't a very successful life form. Okay? That's fear. Right? And if it might be scary, you should do that anyway, because you just don't know. And if you're wrong, you get eaten, right? And that's why we put 10 times more emphasis on scary things. Even if we know they're not scary. Number one thing that scares people in the US is public speaking. Like, you know, you're not going to die, but man, it sure feels like it when they tell you you're going to be on stage in a minute and people start shaking and sweating and all that. That's anxiety, that's stress, that's fear. And the second F word that you as God would install in your little amoebas or little bacteria, it's food, it's feed. And that's because famine will kill lots of things before they can evolve. So make sure that if there is food, eat all of it. And this is why to this day, we still want to eat all the donuts, right? The third F word, okay, now you put yourself in your little God shoes. So you've got fear, you've got food, something else all life has to do to stay around on the planet forever. That's an F word. Can you think of it?
Does it rhyme with puck?
Oh, I was thinking fertility, but you could just go straight there, Tim. I'm down with that, But yeah, it does rhyme with puck. And this is something that you're going to put about 3 times more emphasis on than it really needs. So you have a quadrillion ancient bacteria embedded in your cells running this operating system. And their job is to make you afraid of things that might kill you, even if you know they won't. It's to make you believe that you'll die if you don't have lunch, even though you can go 2 or 3 months without food before you die. So your stress is coming from the fact that your body's running ancient algorithms without the benefit of your brain. And it runs them before you can think about them by definition, because your mitochondria are the ones who are deciding which neurotransmitters you get, which hormones you get, and which stress chemicals you get, as well as how much energy you get. And one of the studies in Fast This Way is that 15% of the average person's thoughts are about what's for their next meal every single day. That's stress. Tacos? If I don't have tacos, I'll die. Okay. We know it's not true, but how many times have you said, oh, I'm starving? That is all that same thing. If I don't eat every 2 hours, I'm going to get a migraine. It wasn't real, but it was a belief. And because migraines hurt, there's fear, right? And fear takes 10 times more energy, more emphasis. Food takes 5 times and sex takes 3 times. So I got to ask you, Tim, have you ever done anything you're ashamed of that isn't one of those 3 words?
Gee, that's so funny you mentioned that, because I'm in recovery for sex addiction. So, enough said.
Okay, exactly. And you're not alone. No one has ever found something they're doing. Or you're like, oh, I procrastinate a lot. Yeah, that's fear.
Yes.
Right? And all of these things are coming from ancient bacteria, a quadrillion of them working to keep your meat alive, not caring about what you want. In fact, they actively don't want you to be in charge. They want to be in charge, because it's their job to be in charge. And from their perspective, you're a walking bag of meat that they control. And from your perspective, they make things like emotions and feelings and stress. And then they'll send you these strong signals. And then because you're smart, you'll look around to figure out why that's happening. You're like, oh, it's my partner's fault. It's because of this. And you get all these stories to justify feelings that happen. And what I have found I run a neuroscience company called 40 Years of Zen, where we take entrepreneurs, and I've done more than 1,000 people now. And for 5 days, we glue electrodes to their head. I've done this myself for 4 months of my life to develop the program, to see what's going on in there, and then teach you advanced meditation states to remove stress. And what you find is that most of the voices in your head are fear-based. And after that, they're food-based. And after that, they're sex-based, in that order, because of this ancient operating system. Wow. But if you can turn off the voices in your head about food so that you simply aren't hungry, and someone puts a bagel in front of you and you're like, no, thanks, I'm just actually not hungry. But there's no willpower. There's no little voice going, eat the bagel. And you're like, no, I'm not going to eat the bagel. It's blissfully peaceful to just not worry about food anymore. And fasting teaches you that. But most people, your metabolism is so broken. If you're like I was, it was really broken. It's very hard to do that without falling into the hypoglycemic high anxiety state. So what do you do? And that's why I wrote Fast This Way, because there are 3 things you can do during a fast that give you the metabolic benefits without dropping your energy. Because whenever your energy drops, your body panics. And it doesn't have to be a big panic, but it's anxiety. Right. In fact, one of the things that happens with migraines is the body doesn't have enough energy to manage the state of the brain. And funny enough, one of the best treatments for a migraine is triple shot of espresso with a bunch of sugar in it. Right. The sugar is a short-term boost in mitochondrial energy. Long-term, bad for you, but short-term, it can turn a migraine around.
Wow.
And who would have thought, right? And the caffeine has its own separate effects, including increasing energy metabolism in the cells. So it's fascinating, though, when you look at fasting as not about pain or deprivation or suffering. It's actually about teaching the body that it is safe to go without for a brief period of time. And our bodies are incredibly lazy. They don't want to waste one drop of energy because they know there might not be more energy that's coming, right? Because there might be a famine. And you're like, come on, stupid body. There's not a famine. Like, I'm fine. Doesn't know, doesn't care. They're bacteria. They can't see the future. They don't have time, right? They're very small and very dumb. So you're sitting in this kind of sea of all this stuff that's very ancient survival behavior. And one of the things that's really uncomfortable that I've recommended for a long time is in the morning, you take your shower, at the end of the shower, turn it to full cold and hit your forehead and your chest. Now, why would you do that? Because in about 10 seconds, you're going to scream and you're going to say, Dave's a jerk, and you're going to step out of the shower and you're going to take your copy of Fast This Way and throw it away. Except if you listen and trust, if you go for another day, the second day, you're like, wow, I made like 20 or 30 seconds before I wanted to jump out of the shower and scream. The third day, I made a whole minute and I still didn't like it. And the fourth day you do it and you feel blissful and amazing, and your body burns more calories, you have endorphins, and magic happens. You do this, I'm guessing?
I love, so here's the thing. I hate getting into my cold shower every morning, but I love getting out of it.
There you go. And what's happening there is after 3 days, the body goes, all right, fine. Now I live in a world where I'm going to have to turn on heat really quickly at any time. So I went to this long, boring, energetically intensive process of rewiring all of my cells to be able to make energy faster. And I'm really pissed off about this because I didn't want to waste any energy on making myself stronger, but you taught me I had to. It's the same thing that happens when you go to the gym and, oh, you mean sometimes I have to lift heavy things? Fine, I'll build more muscles. Or you skip breakfast. You mean, what? I'm not going to get sugar every 2 hours? God damn it. The world is tougher than I thought it was. I guess I'll have to be tougher than I wanted to be. And so fasting like that, it doesn't have to hurt. It's easier than going to the gym. The benefits are profound. And what it does is it teaches you the difference between a craving and hunger. I didn't know there was a difference. I truly believed. In fact, I remember a meeting. I had a very successful time early in my career. I'm at the company that held Google's first servers when it was 2 guys and 2 computers. And I was a co-founder of a part of this company. So I'm, 25, 26 in a relatively senior position for a guy with that little experience. And I'm in a meeting. I go, guys, it's 11:45. I know we're supposed to meet till noon. And I've got 10 people in there. But if I don't eat something right now, I'm going to kill one of you and eat one of you. So I'm ending the meeting right now so I can go to the cafeteria. You can join me if you want, but like, I got to go. Right. And I look back on that. I did not feel like I had a choice on that because my brain was turning off. I really just didn't have what it took. That isn't a part of my life anymore, but this is where you start. So a lot of people, fasting isn't an option because you have a kid on each arm. You're trying to work from home. You're trying to get stuff done. And the notion of a working fast to have more energy and less cravings right now is very different from the spiritual fast aspect, which is something that we do at different times where, for a spiritual fast, I'm going to actually rest and reflect for 2 or 3 or sometimes longer days like I did in a cave. And that you might only have water or tea or maybe even coffee, but you sort of sit there. And that is not compatible with living and focusing and working. And the idea that they're the same isn't really there. And so I see in the world of fasting, which is just becoming cool, it takes a while for new ideas like that to percolate, where people are saying, I'm just going to have water. I'm just going to muscle through my day. Look, if you have to push through it, sometimes there's value in pushing through, but if you're pushing through every day, you're probably doing it wrong. So I wanted people to learn, based on this 10 years with 1 million pounds lost, here's how to fast, even if you're just getting going, even if you had a stressful day. And it's okay to have certain things during a fast that don't turn off the fast, but they sure turn off hunger and turn up energy. So you're just dialed in all day long. And that's all in Fast This Way. In fact, if people go to fastthisway.com, I'm teaching my book for free, like for a 2-week intensive, every morning video, 3 live Q&As, because I just realized this is the most impactful book that I've written. I mean, the Bulletproof Diet had, intermittent keto and low inflammation and intermittent fasting and many things in it that weren't part of the biohacking world because I was working to make the edges of the community. But to just go deep on how do you actually do fasting in a way that will work differently for men and for women and will work for decades and give you extra decades of highly functional life. without pain and suffering, that seemed like it was worth writing a book about. So I'm super happy to teach it. fastestway.com, no cost. Just want people to learn and to try it.
That is super cool. That is a really generous thing to do. I encourage everybody who's listening right now to lean into that. Just the freedom I have between my ears. Because like you said, like there's just more real estate now for other things than food.
Yeah. Freeing up 15% of your thoughts every day, you can use those thoughts on personal development. And you also know the value because you're really open about working on sex addiction. So having a community, having support, there's 28,000 people doing the fasting challenge with me right now in this group. So imagine if you're saying, all right, today I'm going to skip breakfast, but I got 28,000 people, including Dave, helping me do this. It just removes stress because I didn't mention the fourth F word. I mentioned those three dark ones. If you were to make that bacteria that we were talking about, the fourth F word that you would do after the first three were handled is friend. And this is why bacteria make kombucha and yogurt. This is why trees make a forest. And this is why humans make a community. So we're wired to take care of our young. We're wired to help someone who's injured. We're wired to take care of our old. We're wired to form a good society, a tribe, a community. You don't even have to have a brain to do that. Your cells will do that for you, but only if you can handle the first three well enough. So I believe that when we learn how to do intermittent fasting, when we learn how to eat the stuff that's most compatible with our biology, we have enough energy. That energy goes into personal development and it makes us better, kinder people for our community, which in and of itself lowers stress. So everybody wins in that. That's why I'm teaching this class.
That's brilliant. What you don't know is that we finish every day of the summit, and I finish every keynote I ever give by saying that my mantra is that I lean on you, you lean on me, and we don't keep score. That's community. And
that works if you're not as fat as I was.
Yeah, that's a really good one because it takes me back to when I was a kid and my dad had this little short rhyme, which was fatty and skinny were lying in bed. Fatty rolled over and skinny was dead. Short and sweet.
I love it.
Short and sweet. So fastthisway.com.
Yep.
Is where we can go. Dave, thank you so much for being a part of the Stress Elimination Summit Recovery Edition. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I've got a couple of resources for you, which you can find in the show notes or you can listen to right here. So check it out. If you enjoy the sound of my voice and you enjoy the sound of my guitar, imagine them put together. Go to sonicrecovery.com and take your very own relaxation vacation, where I take you out of the stress of the present moment and back in time to a time when you felt happy, healthy, safe, and sober, and then walk you through that memory so you can bring back those feelings into the challenges you're facing today. So go check that out. It's at sonicrecovery.com. If you're a healthcare worker in recovery, check out the Music in Recovery Self-Care Guide for healthcare professionals that I created just for you. That's at hcp.sonicrecovery.com. And if you're a healthcare worker and you'd like more information about how to help your patients use music, you can check out the Music Medicine Guide that I created just for you at musicmedicineguide.com. Lastly, if you enjoyed the pod and you haven't done it yet, would you just take a minute to rate and review it? It really only takes about 60 seconds, believe it or not, and it would go a long way to help us make more people know just how good this pod is, particularly for healthcare workers and their stress. Thanks again. See you next time.